Hey, what's up, Elyson? We're back with another interview today. In these interviews, we interview entrepreneurs. They live right here in Elyson, and they started a business. We learn about their business, about their story, some of the challenges and things that got them to where they are today. And ultimately, they are your neighbors. So if you see one of these people here in these interviews out at Target, out at H-E-B, wherever you are, make sure you say hey. If you want to then reference or refer one of the previous interviewers to a colleague of yours or a friend of yours that you run in, maybe they could use their business, maybe they can enjoy the things that they offer. There's a YouTube channel that has all of the previous interviews. Make sure you share those. The whole concept of these interviews is really supporting local businesses. They all live right here in our backyard. They do some pretty awesome things and they have some really awesome stories. And today I've got the privilege to meet Mr. Chris Pena and go through the story that we have here. But before we even dive into your story, Chris, and I'm excited to have that,
Sure.
We're here at X-Golf Katy. Tell us, what is X-Golf Katy? I mean, we all see it driving past 99 here as we leave Elyson, but what is X-Golf?
Sure. So X-Golf is a fully indoor golf entertainment venue.
Okay.
Think of Topgolf,
Yep.
but fully indoors.
Awesome.
You can play a full 18 holes of golf. You can practice on the driving range. You can practice your chipping. You can practice your putting.
Okay.
There's mini games in there, so you can play closest to the pin. You can do a longest drive. There's a lot of little mini challenges and games that you can go play in there if you're just looking to have some fun rather than be competitive at golf.
Interesting.
Outside of the golf, we have a full bar, beer, wine, and liquor. We have a kitchen in the back. We serve more on the small bites, bar type food.
Sure.
Things that are easy to eat while you're playing golf.
Great.
And then the concept of X-Golf is to really bring people to the game who have no experience or who are experts at the game, right? You can be at any skill level and really enjoy X-Golf.
Even if I hit mulligans all the time?
Even if you hit mulligans.
All
we have a mulligan button on the floor down there. All you got to do is push it. So you can take as many of those as you want.
Cool.
And so it's a business that's designed for people of all skill levels to come in and truly enjoy the game.
Cool.
You're not chasing balls down. You're not losing golf balls. You're not out in the heat. You're not out, in the cold weather during the winter months. It's always 72 degrees in here.
Cool.
So it's a fun atmosphere to come in and still enjoy the game without having to spend hundreds of dollars on outdoor golf.
Right.
Because in today's world, outdoor golf is very, very expensive now, believe it or not. So even the smaller public courses that are out there are still over $100 to play on the weekends. So we're able to provide a platform that you pay hourly, but you can play up to 6 people.
Cool.
So you can split that hourly rate and everybody's just chipping in a few bucks to have a good time.
Makes it fun. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
You can wake up late in July and still come in the refreshing AC and play some golf.
And play golf.
Right?
Yeah, you don't have to, sweat 5 pounds to go play golf in the summer, for sure. And the cool thing that this environment allows us to do is, not only host different types of tournaments. Okay. So we like to do events around the PGA Tour. One of our biggest events is always around the Masters. So we just had the Masters in April. And we do a package, like a bay package. So you get a certain number of hours, you get some buckets of beer.
Yeah.
And then we always provide some sort of food on those packages.
That's awesome.
With the Masters, we actually brought in the food from Augusta.
Great.
So their pimento cheese and their barbecue and stuff. So you get to kind of experience the concessions of the Masters.
Cool.
While you're here playing. We have leagues. Our leagues are very, very popular. So and they're seasonal. So we have fall, spring, winter, summer leagues, and they, right now we're finishing up. We're on the tail end of our spring league.
Okay.
This one was 12 weeks long. We come in once a week. We come in on Tuesday nights. The place is packed with people, and you're all going up against each other, right? Each week you're going up against another team. You're trying to earn points. And so it's a whole lot of fun. There's a lot of competition. We always do cash games on Tuesday nights.
Okay.
So you bring $10 and we'll do, the longest putt or closest to the pin, and whoever that is walks away with, a decent amount of cash. And so that kind of brings another level of competitiveness to the night. So
cool.
The leagues and tournaments are a lot of fun. On staff, we have a PGA teaching professional. So he's full-time on staff, and he's able to provide golf lessons for juniors, adults, seniors of any skill level.
So he's going to help me fix my mulligan.
Yep, I've seen him and watched him coach some different folks, and
really
his patience is incredible, and his teaching capability is way up there.
That's awesome.
It's impressive to watch him, and it's fun to watch his students kind of grow. He'll give them a lesson, and we'll see them come in once or twice the next week to kind of work on those fundamentals or whatever techniques he gave them to work on.
Yeah.
So it's fun to watch the students grow in their golf game and get better. We also do club fittings. So we're partnered with 3 major brands: TaylorMade, Callaway, and Ping.
Okay.
And our pro can do a custom club fitting. So if you're looking to, get a new driver or a new fairway wood or new irons, putter, you name it, you can come in and he'll look at your swing. He looks at all of the data to figure out what type of shaft you need, what lofted clubs you need, and you kind of get it custom fit to you and to your swing, which most people don't realize is a huge benefit to playing better golf, right?
Okay.
Rather than just buying something off of the rack. Sure. You can get it custom fit to you. If you're shorter, we can get the clubs cut down so that they fit you better. If you're taller, we can get them extended. And that plays a vital role in playing a well-rounded game of golf. So there's no extra charge for getting your clubs custom fit. Okay. A lot of times when we do fittings in here, we'll run different deals, maybe 10% off of retail or whatever that deal might be. Sure. We can get you the clubs fit to you, and we can get them cheaper than you can anywhere else. So we like to, especially, our neighbors, our friends, people who are always coming
Elyson,
in to support us.
Hook you up.
Yeah,
there.
we appreciate the business, and it means a lot more to us here than it does going to a big box store down the road. So, we like to help our neighbors out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you guys have, let's say, birthday parties, maybe business events,
Absolutely.
Team building type space or anything like that? Or?
So you name the type of event, and we've probably already done it in here. Yeah. We've done anniversary parties. We've done surprise birthday parties.
Great.
We've done corporate events. Okay. So a corporate event that booked out the entire facility, or just a corporate event that took up one bay, right? Cool. Maybe they only had 6 people. It was a little happy hour after work. But we're able to cater in food if you want food. We can do drink packages at the bar.
Great.
We'll really work with you to make sure that whatever you're envisioning for your event and for your customers or your employees, we can make it fun for them.
Great experience. Yep. That's so cool. So I'm very curious to learn your story today and how you ended up here, right? So tell us, and I'll usually start with these questions here, but who is Chris Pena? Who was Chris Pena, and how did you end up in Elyson?
Sure. So, if we go all the way back, I was born and raised in Corpus Christi, Texas. Okay. Went to college at the University of Texas in Austin, and then went back to Corpus Christi and was at A&M Corpus Christi there and working. So I was kind of doing both there. And while I was there, I met a young lady named Megan. Okay. And I ultimately, ended up taking the path trying to get her to like me. And,
she came around?
She came around.
Okay.
She came around, and after a couple years being in Corpus together, I was offered a job up here in Houston in the steel industry. Awesome. So it was a master distributor for pipe, valves, fittings, flanges. Okay. 80%, 85% of the business is oil and gas. Yeah. And so I came up here to Houston. She, at the time, was working as a pharmacy technician at CVS, and she was able to transfer up here to a store here in Houston. So it kind of worked out for both of us. Good. And we moved to the Kingwood area up north, and I was working just over off of 610. Yep. And I worked there for, about 5 years. Okay. And kind of worked my way up the ladder. I was on the operational side of the business, so dealing with all of the warehousing and logistics and stuff of that nature in that business.
Yeah.
And kind of worked my way up there, and eventually we kind of hit, I guess, a ceiling, so to speak. There was a handful of us that were, kind of all the same age, in similar roles, just in different departments.
Nice.
Accounting, sales, kind of all in that same level of management, but we weren't going to get any higher, and we were having trouble, trying to make each of our divisions better. We were owned by a much larger corporation, international corporation, and there was just a lot of red tape involved, and it was really, really frustrating over the years. So one of the guys that I worked with, who was in charge of sales, he had the idea to start his own company, and wanted to kind of do the same thing, but without all of the red tape.
The same business, so pipes,
same type
fittings,
of business, pipe, valves, fittings, flanges, that same industry, the same products. Just go out and do it on your own, right? He had all of the contacts. He'd been in sales for his entire career in that industry, so he had a ton of contacts to be able to go out and start that business and get support, because in that business it was all about relationships. Because every single one of the competitors, so to speak, there's 4, maybe 5, we all sold the exact same product, right? We all imported the same product from China or India or Brazil or anywhere else in the country. We all bought the same products and sold the same products.
Sure.
It came down to relationships and service, right? How fast could you service your customer, get them their material? If you had a customer in Midland that had a well blowout, or they had something break, how fast could we get them that product? Could we get it to them in less than 12 hours? And our competitors couldn't do it, for 24.
I see.
And that's where, ultimately the decision was made to really build a company based on service.
Awesome.
So in 2016,
what role were you playing?
So I played operations again.
Operations,
right? So I was in charge of operations, and we started much smaller, just here locally, here in Houston, and there was a business that we purchased on an asset buy in New Jersey. So they already had a big pipe yard. They had a bunch of material up there, and they had a really good rapport with the community and the industry up there in that area. So any of the shale plays and the work that was being done up in the Northeast,
Pennsylvania, all of that,
exactly,
all the gas plays.
They had a really good reputation. And the previous owner was nearing retirement age and was looking kind of for his way out, and we ended up being a perfect fit for him. We're half his age and ready to take on his business and take it over for him, and he can move on with his life. So
great,
worked out really well, and it started in 2016. And over the years, every year we grew a little bit more. We would add another warehouse in another state. We kind of would strategically place our warehouses. And by the end of 2022, we were in Salt Lake City, Utah, Houston, obviously, Mobile, Alabama, St. Louis, Missouri, Cincinnati, Ohio, and then we were in New Jersey.
Wow.
So we kind of had pockets to cover the U.S. and to be able to ship material quickly to the customers that needed it. And once you get into, I guess, that industry in the PVF world and the distribution world, like I said, there's only a handful of competitors.
Sure.
And they are much, much bigger than we are. Right? They're the 800-pound gorillas that
so how do you beat them?
You'll never beat them in size. You can always beat them in service, right? Because they're so big, they're slow.
And service is really your area, right? Because you have all of operations.
Exactly. So that was always my focus: is we need to be faster, we need to be better, we need to be more accurate. If they order 200, make sure we ship 200. Don't ship 199 or 201, right? It's got to be accurate. So a lot of my job entailed, process and procedures, making sure that anybody that was green off the street could walk in. If they followed these steps, they would win.
They succeed.
Right? They succeed, we win. And so it was always a challenge, right?
Yeah.
Because every day presented a new challenge. There was always, hey, we got this order that's an entire truckload of fittings and the customer needs it tomorrow.
Yeah.
How are we going to do it? So it's pulling people from here and getting, kind of shifting your workload around to make sure you can get, 10,000 parts pulled in 6 hours and get it on the road so it's in Midland, Texas by 8 a.m. the following morning.
Right.
So it provided for me a lot of challenges every day, and they were all new.
Okay.
Keeping track of $100 million worth of inventory every single day. So you have to do what we would call cycle counting. So every day you're going out and counting random parts, that you kind of generate. So it provided there was a lot of structure to it, right? But there was also what I would call organized chaos.
Yeah.
Because every day one salesperson or two salespeople would throw a wrench in the pit and say, make this happen.
Yeah.
And that was always fun for me. I enjoyed that chaos.
You inherit the problems.
Yeah. It's on me now, and it was always fun for me to say, don't worry about it, we got it. And the crew that we had in the operations in all of our warehouses, they were all they were dedicated, they were loyal, they liked what they did. And so it was a lot of fun. And
when you mentioned something like creating these standard operating procedures, right? SOPs essentially.
Yep.
Which is really critical so that anyone could walk in and fill that role as long as they're able to read and execute, right?
Yep.
You also mentioned taking over other warehouses and other businesses, right? Through that process. Did you find that the standard operating procedures that they had were very different from what you had, and how do you manage that culture change?
I mean, it's there's a lot of things that people do differently throughout different parts of the country.
Okay.
Yeah, and we notice that, right? It's like, okay, well, up here they don't care if they're slow. And over here they don't care if they're too fast, right? They'll kind of overlook safety in a warehouse and just get it done, right? So there's different aspects, and I think that as a team, as a management team at our company, we were able to kind of blend the best of both worlds, right? We weren't I'm not going to say we weren't safe, right? We were incredibly safe, but there were also things that a lot of other companies did that we didn't do because we felt they weren't necessary. And we we operated for 6 years with 0 accidents.
That's great.
None of our, when I say none of our employees got hurt, maybe somebody one day cut themselves with a razor blade or something like that. But in that industry, when you're moving thousands and thousands of pounds of steel and moving pipes, there's a lot of risk involved, and we operated with no major accidents.
That's outstanding.
And so it was, we were able to blend both worlds of being fast and efficient and accurate with being safe. And so when we were able to build those SOPs, and in some ways, changing a culture in a warehouse, it's hard. Right? It's one of those things where, maybe I would have to go into the warehouse and maybe send some of my Houston crew up there.
Okay.
And it was more of a, let us show you how we do it.
Okay.
And then you can tell me why you can't fit in to this
mold.
To this mold, right?
I see.
And 9 times out of 10, they're like, oh, okay, I see what you mean. I got it.
Yeah.
We can do that. That's easy, right?
You feel like you still had to repeat a lot after the fact just to kind of ingrain it in the culture, or do they pick up most of the time?
They pick it up pretty quick. I mean, especially when if there's safety involved, or there's customers that are upset because something went wrong.
Right.
That really comes down to you either do it this way or you don't.
What happened? What failed? Right.
Yeah.
And so let's not do that again.
Yeah. So there's a lot of not only risk analysis, but maybe some root cause analysis on what caused this order to go wrong, or what caused you to bend the pipe, or damage the pipe, whatever it might be. And so we kind of worked through all those, and if something happened in Cincinnati that we had never seen in Houston before, we'd look at it together, and maybe whatever Cincinnati did, or to fix a problem or solve a problem, we would implement in Houston, right?
That's great.
So everybody, we always had, you know, weekly calls, and we would bring those types of things up. Hey, we've seen this or we've seen that. Let's try to make those adjustments. So SOPs were never, you know, ingrained in stone by any means. It was always something that was a flexible document and ready to kind of flow with the game.
Very cool. So this is a very different business from where you are today, right? Like we're night and day here.
No. So our steel business got to the point where it was, you know, I guess becoming a flea on a horse's ass, if you want to say that.
Sure.
And it was bothering and getting into the market, you know, some market share for some of the bigger companies. And one of those bigger competitors approached us and wanted to buy us. So kind of went through that whole deal, and it took over a year to get all of that done, due diligence, and, you know, making sure that they wanted to go down that path. And during that path is when, you know, I was really looking at wanting to do something different afterwards. As much fun as I had in that business, it was very, very taxing personally. Right? I was hardly ever home. I missed a lot of stuff with my kids. You know, I wasn't able to go to any of their school functions or anything like that, take them to school or pick them up from school, anything like that. My wife, she did all of that. And so I missed out a lot of things with my kids as they were kind of coming up through school. And so I wanted to find something that was, one, closer to home, and two, gave me the flexibility to go to their school at 10 a.m. or 11 o'clock and have lunch with them, or go on a field trip with them, those sorts of things. So I really started thinking about what I enjoy the most. And the one thing I enjoy the most is golf. I've played golf for a very long time, and it's just a hobby of mine that I truly enjoy. And so I started looking up different things to do with golf, right? Didn't have the kind of money to go buy a golf course and you know, manage a golf course. Not that that's anywhere near what I wanted to do, but I started looking up, you know, maybe a golf retail shop, you know, buy new and used clubs and, you know, help people locally find better deals on golf clubs than going to a big box store. And, you know, then I started thinking about the inventory aspect and how much I've already dealt with inventory for the last, you know, decade of my life. I didn't want to mess with having inventory and negotiating and haggling and doing all of that, right? I just wanted something that was, here's the price.
Simpler.
It's much easier. Then I came across indoor golf here in Houston and went to another spot here in Houston. I was like, man, this is a lot of fun, and it's a really cool concept. They had a couple of simulator bays. They had a bar. They didn't have any food, but you know, just the golf and the bar aspect, I was like, man, this is a really unique and different way to enjoy golf. And I had a blast, right? And before that, I was always you know, simulators kind of suck. I'm not going to go play on that. I'm green grass all the way. I'm only playing golf outside. And, you know, the older I get, the more I realize that, you know, it's a really bad way to look at it. And so after kind of looking at that concept, I started researching all the different technology that was out there, because I was like, okay, well, I can build one of these myself and, you know, go buy the tech and kind of build my own simulator store. So through that research, I came across X-Golf. And as I was looking through their website, I saw that they were a franchise. And I was like, well, that might be interesting, because, you know, doing something from the ground up is, one, it's already hard enough. And two, there's a lot of different moving parts in a simulator that maybe I don't know about yet. So I reached out to X-Golf and inquired, you know, just on their website, I inquired about a franchise. And a couple of days later, I got an email back, and, you know, they sent me it was like a 30-page long document about what their franchise is, how it functions, you know, how it operates, how they operate, which is a really good informational packet. So I was impressed by that for one.
So do they help you, like, because there's a lot to it, like you said, there's technology, there's experience, then there's just building a business. Like, how do you market and how do you get people in here?
Exactly.
So if you can focus on a few things, it makes it easier.
Yeah.
But where do they come in, and like, what do they help you do?
So at the very beginning, the franchise was really helpful. They provided, I mean, it felt like a checklist that was 800 pages long.
Okay.
But it was literally a checklist of like, you know, at this time, you would kind of enter your potential start date, and then it would, the sheet would reorganize itself.
Okay.
So that, you know, when you're 5 months out, you're placing your order for your simulators.
Nice.
When you're 1 week out, you know, you're out, you know, you're cleaning your bar top, whatever it might be. I mean, it was a very detailed checklist of things you needed to get done, right? For everything from plumbing, there's a construction checklist. There's a materials you need to buy checklist. There's a materials they suggest you buy checklist.
Okay.
So I found that to be really, really helpful at the beginning. Once you get started, what I really like is that they really do stay out of your hair. They're there if you need them, right? If you need help marketing something, you can call them, you can email them, and they pop right back to you. Hey, try this, try that.
Great.
They're really helpful and responsive on that side. So I've been really grateful to have, you know, a corporate franchise partner that, you know, anytime I need something answered or I have a question, they're there, especially on the technology, right? Because it is tech, and sometimes it goes down, sometimes something breaks.
What do you do?
And you know, we went to like a 4 or 5 day training, and you kind of get in depth on the simulator. You rip it apart, you know what all the little plugs are and how it all operates, and you know that's, you know, obviously it's required that you do that. So you get some pretty in-depth training on the simulators, but it's different when you're here and you don't have somebody behind you saying, "Oh, wrong one. Do that. You wrong plug there." So when you kind of get inside the guts of those things, when something breaks and you can't figure it out, you log online to their portal, their tech portal, you enter a little ticket, and within a half hour they're calling you.
Very fast.
Yeah, and 9 times out of 10 they can fix it remotely.
Wow.
You know, they'll FaceTime you if you need to FaceTime, so they can see exactly what you're looking at if it's something in the floor. So very, very supportive, and you know, I haven't, you know, been unhappy with them up to this point. Yeah.
So on the tech side, right, since we're there, and we've got a simulator right here behind us, right? Big thing up here, down there. When I swing, how does it know? I mean, obviously you can feel the ball hit the screen, but how does it know, like, where it should actually go, how far, what's the spin, like all those kinds of things? Like, are the sensors truly in depth enough to like capture that? Yep.
So in the floor, there are what we call impact sensors.
Okay.
So depending on where your ball is placed, there is a camera that is looking down at your ball, so it knows where your ball is placed.
I see.
Well, those impact sensors will know if you hit on top of the ball or behind the ball. So just like if you're outside in what we would call a chunk, right?
Yeah.
You've hit it fat, you hit it behind the ball, that impact sensor is gonna know exactly where you hit that ball.
Cool.
So once the ball does make flight, there's a bunch of lasers that are up here.
Wow.
And if you can imagine 2 sheets of lasers that are coming down, if you turn off all the lights, you'd be able to see you know, 2 sheets of lasers. As that ball passes through those lasers, it's measuring, along with the camera, it's measuring spin rate, angle, velocity. I mean, it's measuring, it does over 6,000 calculations a second.
Wow.
So as soon as you hit it, it knows exactly what that golf ball is going to do.
Interesting.
So, you know, most simulators that you go to, you'll hit it, and there's typically a 5 or 6 second delay before it even shows up on the screen.
Interesting.
These are instantaneous.
Wow.
So as soon as that ball hits that screen, you can see your ball flight, and you know, it's either straight or it's not.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean, the technology for me, which is one of the the larger reasons I actually chose X-Golf, was because of their technology. I mean, it truly is superior than any of the other tech that's out there.
Wow.
Especially when it comes to the short game.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to find a simulator out there that has accurate putting. Most simulators that you go to, you either skip the putting or it's so bad that you just skip it yourself.
Yeah, how does the putting work? Like
putting's the same way. So there's a sensor down there on the ground, whether you're right or left-handed, and as that ball is rolling over, there's kind of a center line for putting, and it knows at what angle you came off of center.
Okay.
It knows how fast that ball is rolling. It knows what spin you put on the ball. Just force. It can see your club come through, so it knows how far you actually hit it.
That's a lot of calculations to make.
It is. I mean, it's a lot of math, and I'm glad I don't have to do it. I just
somebody
hit the ball.
out there is super smart.
Yeah, the technology, X-Golf was originated in South Korea, which is still there. Their corporate headquarters is still there.
Okay.
And I believe in 2013, maybe 14, X-Golf brought their simulators to America. And originally they were just selling them privately. Like you could buy the tech for your house, your business or whatever. And eventually, after a couple of years, they got into the franchise model and created a company called X-Golf America.
Very cool.
And so X-Golf America runs all of the franchising.
That's awesome.
But all the tech originates from Korea. At the last conference I went to, I was able to actually meet the owner and creator, founder of X-Golf. Super, super smart guy, and just absolutely incredible some of the things he comes up with.
Yeah.
And he's got a ton of different technology out there, not just this.
Yeah.
X-Golf America doesn't use some of it, but in Korea they use a lot of their technology, and it's pretty impressive. So
that's cool.
They help with the R&D on the golf courses, on graphic designing, and we're hoping that by some point this year we get that new graphic design update with new golf courses, because some of our regulars that have been here, they've played all these golf courses already. They want to come play something new, and so hopefully by the end of this year we get that graphic design update.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
So when did you open this location?
We opened in January of 2024, so we're just over a year old.
Okay. Congrats.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. So day 1 January, you open.
Yep.
Did anyone show up?
We had a handful of people show up. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we did a kind of a soft opening.
Yep.
And I'll preface all of this. The business I was at before, there was no marketing.
Okay.
We didn't have to market because
logistics, right?
we were and even as our company as a whole, we were one of 4 people you could buy from.
Okay.
So everybody came to us no matter what to at least get a quote. They may not have bought from us, but they at least came to us for a quote. So we didn't have to market ourselves because people knew our phone number, and that's all they needed to know.
Okay.
And so coming into a business like this, at the very beginning, I leaned heavily on X-Golf. How do I market? Where do I market? All these types of things, because I had never done marketing in my entire life. And we did an okay job leading up to the opening. And day 1, it wasn't a packed house or anything like that, but we had a decent amount of people come through the first week or two, and after that, it just kind of became a cat and mouse game with the marketing, right?
Okay.
I would put money here and get no ROI. I would put money here and triple my ROI.
Oh, nice.
So it was kind of figuring out, what worked and what didn't.
Yeah.
And so year 1 in any business that you do is a year of lessons, right?
Yeah.
So you're learning what works, what doesn't, especially if it's an industry or a business you've never really been in.
Yeah.
Right? I've never owned a bar. I've played golf, but I've never owned a business around golf.
Sure.
And so trying to market to the right demographic of people that are going to come in and enjoy the place and be recurring customers is something that I've learned takes a lot longer than I thought it did. Right? I thought just putting up a sign and maybe a couple advertisements here and there, people are like, all right,
that's cool.
We're in.
Drive by and boom.
Yeah.
Right.
And as you go by, as time goes by and people come through the door, it's like, oh, how'd you hear about us? And they're like, well, I've driven by 50 times and I could never tell what it is, so I wanted to come in. And people don't realize how big this space is from the road.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, people always ask, well, you can't see inside, so nobody's going to come in. And the reason it's all blacked out up front is because of the simulators.
Yeah.
So any of that natural light coming in will kind of distort the image on the simulators, and it doesn't you can't see it as well, right?
Yeah.
So we don't want any of that natural light coming in.
Makes sense.
Or limiting that natural light.
Sure.
So that you can see the simulators and the graphics and see it much better. So
that makes sense.
Being outside and looking in, a lot of people think we're just a golf shop.
Sure.
Right? We sell only golf clubs, or we
They don't know.
we do that.
Yeah.
And they just don't know, and they walk in and like, oh my God, this place is incredible.
Totally different.
Yeah, I mean.
So you mentioned you tried several things, they were like not good, and then you found some things that really worked well.
Yep.
Talk to us a little bit about that process. Like,
Sure.
what did you try? And you're like,
Yep.
oh man, that hurt, or
Yeah.
whatever.
So the ones that didn't work for us, surprisingly, was ESPN Radio.
Okay, big time.
Yeah. I mean, and they came in and did a live show here.
Oh wow.
We had 30-second commercials going on every single day for several months.
Wow.
And we just didn't see the ROI, and that stuff was thousands of dollars a month, right?
I bet.
And so we're just, every time people were coming in, we're like, well, how'd you hear about us? How'd you hear about us? And every time we kept hearing of it was either word of mouth, my friend told me,
Okay.
or we saw you on social media.
Oh wow.
And, so ESPN Radio didn't work out. We did some stuff with CW39 Houston, like commercials. That didn't really pan out. We did some TV commercials, like when I say TV, it was like CTV, so it's like the streaming networks.
Okay.
But I feel like a lot of the commercials that we did, or when they aired, may have not been when most people are either awake or paying attention.
I see.
The demographic of people that we're looking for, and with when you have a business like this, the demographic you're looking for is people with disposable income.
Sure.
And so maybe, the people we were reaching on those, because we were getting views, but we weren't seeing any return. So maybe it was a demographic that just didn't have the disposable income to come in and play golf,
right?
And drink and entertain themselves,
sure.
Which is okay. But I think that's where kind of the disconnect was there. What we have found to work really well is Facebook advertisements. Social media presence has got to be, it's almost an everyday thing,
all the time.
Right? As long as you're out there in front of people, that seems to work. And then we do a lot of golf tournaments outside.
Okay.
So we sponsor a lot of different events, tournaments that people put on, whether they're for a certain charity or, Chamber of Commerce or Katy Christian Ministries, stuff like that.
Does that work pretty good?
Those work great.
Yeah.
So they're it's a one-time lump fee, right?
Yep.
Which some of them are higher, but most of them are pretty manageable.
Okay.
And so you get a team of 4 to play in the tournament, so you get to go have some fun. But then you also get to set up, we get to set up our table and our tent on one of the holes. So you get, 150 to 300 golfers coming through, and every single one of those people is a golfer, right?
Yeah.
Obviously. So
your clientele.
It's our clientele.
Income, they like the sport.
All day long. Yep. So we always, have something to give away, something to raffle off. We give away coupons and stuff like that.
Sweet.
And then most of the time, at the end of the tournament, somebody in that tournament will come find us and say, hey, I want to do an event here. I want to do a birthday party. I want to host a corporate event. Or do
great.
Something like that. So we always are able to snag a few events doing those, doing those types of golf tournaments. So we have found, social media and golf tournaments outside, and that's pretty much all I do now.
That's great.
Because all the other avenues just didn't pan out.
Try a lot of things and then just really narrow down.
And we've
These are
narrowed it
working.
down.
Let's work harder on them.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So social media advertising. Tell me about that. Like, was that an easy thing just to kind of pick up and go and successful right away, or
there was a lot to learn.
Okay.
So I read through. I can't even go through the amount of pages on Meta and Facebook that I went through.
Really?
To read how their advertising and targeting works.
Oh wow.
Most people think you just pay money and your ad goes out there to the people you want it to, and it's not the way it works, right?
Okay.
You have to be pretty strategic about how you choose your target audience, how much you're willing to pay each day for that advertisement, because it ends up going into almost like an auction, a bid. and on the back end of Facebook.
Okay.
And so if we have competing ads, I might be competing for the same target audience you are.
Sure.
And depending on how much I'm paying or how long I'm running my ad is going to depend on who wins.
Yeah.
And so I might take some of your market and you might take some of mine, and I may not be hitting all of my target audience that I want to be. So you have to really narrow down your target audience. You have to be very specific about what you're looking for, the interests of the people you're looking at. So when I place an ad for a league night, right, I'm probably not going to have the same demographic and target audience as a ladies' night, right?
Okay.
I'm going to have two different target audiences there. Same thing goes for junior summer camps, right? My target audience is probably not going to be the same audience that I have for league night, right? I'm going to go after moms, parents, people with kids. And what blew my mind with Facebook is I can type in, you type in parents, and there's a subcategory that comes up. It says parents with kids ages 6 to 10, or 11 to 14.
Wow.
And so you can target that specific,
Facebook knows a lot about your personal life, folks.
It's crazy, yeah. It's really scary how much they know about us and all the data that's behind your profiles. We're able to leverage that as a business and, get you get our ads in front of you for that specific reason, and as a mom sitting there looking for something for her kids to do over the summer,
there it is.
There's our summer camp ad. Oh, so well, let's go do that.
If you've got kids at home and they're bored, we know who to take them to.
Yeah.
That's it.
So we run our summer camps all summer long, all June and July, every single week of those months.
Okay.
They're a lot of fun. We did them last summer. They were a big hit, and I enjoy getting to teach the kids the game of golf, because it's been so beneficial for me, not just personally, but in business, right? And a lot of business deals and business meetings happen on the golf course nowadays. So it's a great sport to learn. It's non-contact. Most of it's this is inside, but it's also a sport that you can go play with your kids and practice with them. You don't just have to sit in the bleachers and watch from afar.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. And you talked about competition on the marketing and social media stuff. Like, how do you gauge what others are doing, or does Facebook show you that stuff?
Facebook does not show you.
Yeah, they just want to give me more money,
yep,
right?
they just want your money. So
how do you know when something's being overly competed on or something like that?
So after you place an ad, you get access to a portal, essentially an advertisement. I think they call it the ad center.
Okay.
And it gives you a bunch of different data points.
I see.
So you can see how many clicks you're getting. It goes all the way down to the cost per click.
I see.
And you can compare your ads to see, okay, well, this ad is costing me quite a bit more per click. And those ads, I can tell, okay, I'm competing somewhere in some way or fashion. I am competing against somebody else that has a similar ad. And typically you see those when you're doing something for Mardi Gras or Cinco de Mayo, something that a lot of businesses are advertising for. That's when you see your costs go up. You're not getting as many clicks, is because there's 100 other businesses within a mile radius promoting the same thing, $5 margaritas or something similar like that. That's when you're competing.
Do you just I'm not going to go there anymore, I'm going to back out, cave out, or do you tweak it and kind of find a way to niche
sometimes
it down?
I try to tweak it. If I'm able to, I'll add maybe increase my spend by a couple dollars per day. And if you're able to do that, or maybe sometimes I'll take my market and shrink it a little bit.
Okay.
So rather than focusing on Cypress, Katy, Fulshire, Richmond, Memorial, kind of doing that whole spread, maybe I just pull it down to Katy.
Interesting.
So all of my money, rather than it being spread across those different market areas, it's all focused on Katy.
Hunker down.
Yep. Yeah. So you can kind of make those tweaks to your ad if you see those things, but it's really interesting. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But it really does work.
So you're going to start selling classes to teach Elyson business owners how to run Facebook ads next?
I don't know if I'm that good, but I will give you a tip. The way a lot of the stuff that I learned, and you know, some people might shame me for it, but I had Meta contact me, and you know, one of their salespeople, obviously, they found out we have a new business somehow, some way. Probably us starting a business page,
they're
right?
Just listening to you on your phone.
Yeah.
No worries.
They contacted, they reached out, and they were like, "Hey, we want to provide, you know, an advertisement avenue for you." And so I sat through probably 6-7 calls, you know, along with my GM.
They offer a lot of that training.
Listened how you know, they kind of walk through how it works, how you do it, and you know, kind of going through all that, and their cost to do that is really high.
Yeah.
So you're like, man, you know, that's a lot of dang money.
Yeah, and some people probably don't do much with it, right?
Like some people don't. I was under the assumption that was the only way to do it. After talking with them, that's the way they made it seem. Like, you have to do this through us, then we can provide you with all of this data. I had a regular customer come in one day, was chit-chatting with him about it. He's like, dude, you can do it yourself.
Oh.
I said, what? He's like, yeah, you can do it yourself. And so after that conversation, I went in there and I just clicked the button that said advertise and just started kind of going step by step. And I was like, holy cow, this is it.
Interesting.
So rather than paying Meta a $1,000 fee every month to push out my advertisements, just do it yourself.
Nice.
Yeah, and I didn't realize you could.
Yeah. Would you suggest somebody still go through some of the Meta stuff just for the learning of how they do it, or do they not really teach you the hows and dynamics?
Yeah, I mean, depending on which sales rep you get and how open, you know, they are to, you know, I asked every question I could think of.
Yeah.
And, you know, as long as they're willing to kind of walk you through it and show you how it, most of them will.
Okay.
But for me, it's not worth the extra spend. Now, if you're already pulled in 800 different directions, and maybe you have another job that you focus on, and you know, your business over here is kind of, you know, on the side, and you just don't have time to do it, it is time consuming, right? It's not something that can be done in 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It takes time to build an ad and make sure that it's the right one, especially if you're spending money on it, right? You want to make sure that it's correct and you've got the correct target audience. So it takes time to build and to manage and keep an eye on, make sure that, you know, your ads are actually working, they're getting clicked on. So if you don't have time for it and you have the available funds to spend,
fantastic option.
It's a great option.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Very
Facebook advertisements are 100% worth it.
Cool.
Yep.
So have you, throughout this last year, right, have you made any kind of changes, and do you have any foreseeable changes here in your business locally that you want to be working on as they come along?
Yeah, I mean, through all of last year, you know, I feel like every week we were changing something we were doing, right? Whether it was a process we were doing at the bar or in the kitchen, or how we were greeting customers, how we were, you know, getting customers, you know, to the golf bays.
Sure.
I feel like every week we were changing something last year.
Yeah.
Right now we have, I think the process we have now works really, really well.
Good.
I have an incredible staff.
Great.
I mean, they are all just, they're so easy to work with.
Okay.
They love the business themselves. They have fun.
That's awesome.
Some of them play in the leagues.
Okay.
You know, they're young, they're energetic, and so they're a lot of fun to be around, and it makes it really easy to work. You know, I've put in a lot of trust in them, and I think they appreciate that trust back.
Absolutely.
So it's a great working relationship. You know, if I have to leave to go do something, or I want to go on a field trip with my kids, I don't have any issues leaving my staff here alone. I know that the store is taken care of, you know, customers are taken care of, and I don't have to, you know, fret about that. And, you know, for the first 8 months, I lived here.
Yeah.
Right? There was no trust with anybody, and not that they didn't deserve it, but, you know, that's just kind of the person that I am.
It's your baby. You put tons of work and planning into it, and
I was here 7 days a week, you know, open to close, just making sure that we were trying to do everything we could to grow it. And
great.
I think we've got a fantastic customer base. We have a ton of regulars that come in.
Great.
And you know, I think every month we probably add another 4 or 5 regulars, right?
Okay.
They become regulars. They're in here, and when I say regular, you're in here multiple times a week.
Okay, great.
So we get guys that come in for an hour on their lunchtime.
Yep.
They'll grab a bite to eat, play 9 holes, and go back to work.
Perfect.
Right? You see them real quick, hey, how you doing? But it's super easy, and then, once a month they're bringing in their clients.
Awesome.
Or they're bringing in their coworkers to play. They play in the league nights. So it's been a real fun community to be around, to build, to be a part of.
I bet.
I've met a ton of different people, which is really fun and exciting, to just meet people from all walks of life. It's
cool.
I love it.
That's really awesome. No, it's great to meet you and get understand your story better, how you opened and everything like that. If someone here in Elyson, of course, wants to find you or just hear more information about you, follow you on social media, whatever, how can they get in touch with you and ultimately come here?
Sure. So we have a website, that pretty much has everything you need to know about our store on there. That's playxgolf.com/locations/Katy.
Okay.
We have Instagram. So we're on Instagram as X-Golf Katy, and we're also on Facebook as X-Golf Katy. You can find us there. We're always posting different events that we have going on there.
Talked about a lot of them today.
Yeah. I mean, social media is where we live and breathe.
Great.
For the most part. It's where we promote everything. And most of the events, if you want to register or sign up, you can do that on our website, or you can do it in store. If you're a directions kind of person, we are off of 99. Just north of Morton Ranch, south of Clay, on the west side of 99.
Okay.
Really easy to find. If you know where Coffee Fellows is, they've got a gigantic sign right next door to us. We're in the same building as Coffee Fellows.
Awesome.
But yeah, we'd love to have y'all here.
Cool. I know Chris would like to see you guys here at Elyson. Come on by, support a local business, and tell your friends, tell your neighbors all about X-Golf and support local. We'll see you on the next interview.
Yep. Thank y'all.